Hello, Happy New Year. It's the end of 2025, the beginning of 2026. This time of year, I always fall back to the adage, actions speak louder than words, especially when it comes to web analytics. So at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, I like to go back, look at the previous, 12 months of activity on the Silicon Florist blog, see what stories really resonated with you, see what people clicked on, more importantly, because while stories may have a lot of conversation or sharing on social, I'm always really curious about which stories people actually clicked on, what they interacted with. And so I've gathered the top 10. We're going to do it in kind of the old school, counting down from 10 to 1. And bear in mind, these are the top stories on Silicon Florist, the blog. So there's a whole different set that I can link up of the top 10 YouTube videos that people found most compelling. I created a playlist of those, so I'm happy to link that up. But these are the blog posts that drew the most attention in 2025. And I love that it goes from a very local, kind of aggressively humble, quietly growing startup here in town to a thing of global importance that has direct ties to Oregon. So without much further ado, let's get into it. Number 10 was Customer.io reaching 100 million ARR milestone. ARR, of course, means annual recurring revenue. So Customer.io, a startup here in Portland that's been around for quite a while. I spoke to the co-founder and CEO, Colin, in the Startup Stories interview series. Thanks again, Colin, for carving out time to do that. Really appreciate it. But this was an important story because it speaks to actual business metrics, which aren't always something that we highlight a lot in the startup world. So I was really happy to see that Customer.io story wound up getting the kind of pickup it did. Number 9, let's get you connected to your Oregon startup peers. Really was a post designed to kind of highlight this database of folks from the Oregon startup community that I was looking to highlight, help people get connected, really share their profiles in ways that might not work in a modern world of social media where, you don't have as much visibility into locally who might be an important person for you to know. It tends to all happen on a global scale. And I would say this is pretty much a failure. I pushed this for 3 or 4 months. People were super excited at the beginning and submitted their profiles and that kind of thing. But then it just really trailed off. Didn't seem to work for the community, was not fulfilling something that I think people needed or found valuable. So I haven't really pushed it since, but really interesting to see that people were interested in it so much that it pushed it up into the top 10 for 2025, even if that was a failed experiment that didn't really play out. Number 8, Silicon Florist Tech Summit 2025. So the Silicon Florist Tech Summit has become an annual gathering that's an important gathering for our community. Really well organized, really amazing programming, great stage production and all those kind of things. I believe it's going to be now in its third or fourth year. It seems like it's been around forever now at this point. But the big change that I think caused the traffic to this post was the first one was out in Hillsborough. The second one was going to be still out in the suburbs, and then they wound up with an opportunity to move it into Portland proper. It happened in Veterans Memorial Coliseum down in the basement, and there were 1,000 people there. So great facility, nice that it was in town, nice that people were interested in attending. I know the plans are underway for the next one. I believe it's coming up, not at the beginning of the year, but in March-ish, if I'm remembering correctly. So keep your eyes open for more news on the Silicon Florist Tech Summit 2026. And hopefully that post will be one of the most popular of the year as well. Okay, the first big fundraising one on the top 10 list, Conductor One raises $79 million led by Greycroft. Conductor One, that was almost the single largest raise for the community last year, I believe. But if you don't know, Conductor One focused on AI and cybersecurity, really growing startup here in Portland, one to watch for sure. I've been, excited to watch their growth over the years, and know that they recently relocated, maybe even this year, relocated to Revolution Hall. They're in Southeast Portland. They're down on kind of the first floor of Rev Hall. So, just keep an eye on Conductor One. I'll probably do a, startups to watch in 2026, and Conductor One is definitely on that list, and really happy to see that this news story of them raising $79 million wound up on the top 10. Number 6, another fundraising one. Former Nike folks formed 514, fomenting $10.8 million in fresh financing. So, a lot of the questions I get from people outside of Portland is like, do Intel folks or Nike folks really contribute to the startup community? Are they spinning out companies or creating startups in town? And so it's always nice to see when that is in fact the case, because it's not always the case, but nice to see a group of Nike alums not only building a new startup in town, but also getting the financing they need to build that company. And so that closes out the lower half of the top 10. Coming in at number 5, Portland Startup Week 2025, what's currently on the docket. So this was where I shared all the things that Josh Carter and his team had planned for Portland Startup Week 2025. Just kind of list of all the things you could potentially do during Startup Week, which is a lot of self-organized or different organizations contributing to the larger Portland Startup Week calendar. I know they already have dates on the calendar for Portland Startup Week 2026, so of course I'll keep you posted on that, but always nice to see when people put this much effort into creating an event, a series of events, or really a community gathering for the Portland startup community. Nice to see it being so well received, and definitely people reading that blog post. Number 4 is a little bit of a bittersweet one. John Maroney moves on from Oregon Venture Fund. John Maroney has really been the deal flow, the person to meet from Oregon Venture Fund for 10 years maybe now. And he's kind of, gotten to that point where he's ready to try something new. I need to catch up with him in 2026 and figure out exactly what that new thing is. I do know the Oregon Venture Fund. Now, Dipti Madhava is the person who will kind of deal with the community, who will engage with the community and help with the deal flow. That's where I got the deal with the community, because it's like deal flow. Like, who's the person you reach out to if you want to engage with Oregon Venture Fund? That's Dipti, and she has moved into that role that John Maroney was serving. And again, looking forward to sharing what John is up to once I figure that out. Number 3. Okay, this one's a little tongue-in-cheek, so I'm going to read the headline verbatim. Oregon is the bestest, most wonderfulest place to be the most amazingest, awesomest entrepreneur ever. And this was really one of my rants. Like every 3 years or so, I kind of just go off on a rant about something that's frustrating me. And the funny thing is I probably spend the least amount of time thinking about these kind of ranty posts. Like I can still remember the one about Umpqua Bank when they were, going to do a startup accelerator, and rather than doing it in Portland or in Oregon, they went to the Bay Area, and it of course eventually failed. But that's the last time I remember one of those big rants. But this one was really about the fact that there seems to be a lot of not disreputable, but probably not just like the people you would look to for meaningful data, who then take some of their data and then package it up and say, oh, Oregon is the best place for entrepreneurship because of this particular metric that we've uncovered from the people who use our site. Or we know that Oregon is the happiest place on earth because of X, Y, or Z. But it's not like deeply researched or deeply cited in terms of other research to really defend their position. It's much like this thing I'm doing right here. They look at their web analytics and they go, oh, we've derived this kind of concept out of what we're seeing in people using our site or using our product. So got a little frustrated with that, a little flustered, and was just kind of saying, like, look, until I hear every founder, or at least the majority of startup founders, or even the majority of entrepreneurs, say that Oregon is truly the easiest and best place to build a company. I can't really believe it, no matter how much data you show me. So all I was saying is, like, maybe take a beat before you share the thing that says Oregon's great or Portland's the best for startups or whatever. Maybe take a beat and analyze whether that sharing that kind of, again, not disreputable, but not quite as reputable data really does much to help the story around here, or if it actually exacerbates existing problems where then the state can look at it and go, well, obviously we don't need to do anything more because we're the best there is. Again, I don't want to go off into a rant. You can always read that, and I would love to hear your perspective if you have a different perspective. As someone who often shares news with rose-colored glasses and is overly optimistic about the potential of Oregon, I totally get it. I totally get why you want to share that, and I totally appreciate that perspective. I'm just saying, we can do better, I think, and that's what that rant was about. Number 2 was another kind of ranty post from Angel. So I was just doing the edit, wanted to jump in here. Angel Medina. My throat kind of caught. It should be Angel Medina. Angel. Sorry about the mispronunciation. Now back into it. Of Republica and formerly of Esperanza, and a number of other coffee shops and restaurants that have been started here in Portland. Angel has kind of encouraged us through this post, which is a bit of a rant, to really let go of this nostalgic kind of treatment of the former Portland and kind of clinging to this idea of what Portland was or what Portland had the potential to be at a time, and is really encouraging us to look at where we are today and what the potential of today is. What does the next best version of Portland look like, given where we are and what we have at our disposal? And I always appreciate that kind of call to action where someone says, quit being nostalgic about it, quit trying to rebuild the past, quit trying to recreate something that existed before, and instead look at where we are now, think creatively, and let's move forward from that point. Let's build from that foundation. Let's not try and resurrect this nostalgic blah blah just because it happened to work at a moment in time because of all the things that were happening back then. So again, really appreciate Angel writing this piece. I was happy to share it. I was glad so many people took the time to read it. Also happy to mention that Angel seems to be stoking up the writing again. He's dropped a few pieces on his new Substack recently. And so if you're interested in more of his perspective on Portland, being a restaurateur, what it's like in Portland as a business owner and what he's trying to accomplish, I highly encourage you to follow Angel on Substack. I'm sure he'll be publishing more this year. Okay, that was number 2. Before we get to number 1, I wanted to hit a few of the honorable mentions. Ampere Computing got acquired for $6.5 billion this year. That was a pretty important story, so I just wanted to make sure that I raised that. Agility Robotics, which is arguably one of the best companies working in humanoid robotics, which is headquartered here in Oregon. Apparently SoftBank considered acquiring them for nearly $1 billion. So just wanted to highlight that. That was another popular story that bubbled almost in to the top 10. And then finally, if you were in Portland or paying attention to Portland, even if you didn't want to pay attention to Portland this fall, you were forced to pay attention to Portland because of all the blah, blah coming out of the federal government about, what a burning hellhole Portland was, full of, left-leaning scum and what have you. There were all kinds of protests. So this post, Is Portland Burning, was really just designed to be like, hey, look, from somebody who lives in Portland, who's in the city every day, who's downtown and all over Portland on a regular basis, this is what's really happening in Portland right now. And again, that was another one that was really popular, but didn't quite crack the top 10. So Is Portland Burning? It is also, there's a site that's like, Is Portland Burning? Kind of like, is it snowing in Portland right now? Huge fan of that site. So again, almost in the top 10, but not quite. So what is the most popular and most clicked upon story on Silicon Florist for 2025? Well, it's a global story. It has to do with Jensen Huang, the founder of NVIDIA, and the headline was, "The most valuable company in history was founded by an Aloha High and Oregon State grad." So that is the thing for all the talk about NVIDIA, for it being a $4 trillion company and then becoming a $5 trillion company. I think one of the storylines that often gets lost, that's especially important to us here, is that Jensen went to Aloha High here in the Portland area, and he and his wife both graduated from Oregon State. So he's a Beaver through and through and continues to contribute back to that university. But just one of those, especially if you're watching this before you go to your New Year's Eve party and you need some trivial cocktail chatter to make you more interesting and more charming at your New Year's Eve party, maybe consider dropping the knowledge that Jensen Huang, founder of NVIDIA, is from the Portland area. Okay, my voice is about shot. I've been sipping tea in between takes, trying to salvage it, just so we can get this back and get this out. But happy end of 2025, happy beginning of 2026, happy new year to you and yours. Thanks as always for watching all year. I really appreciate having you here, and I look forward to chatting with you more in 2026. And until we get the chance to chat again in 2026, please keep up the good work.